So what I have here is a copy of the rebase and incentive calculator worksheet that I shared with the community last week. And what I want to do is go through it step by step and kind of break it down and then put it back together. So let's start with the model. The most important part of the model to understand is that rebases are driven by number of transactions. So the protocol has to have a certain number of transactions, which are spelled out here in the worksheet, before a rebase will occur. So that's the most important thing to remember. So there is no automated rebase that occurs. It's conditional. It only happens if we meet a threshold of transactions. There's also a second condition. You cannot have more than two rebases within approximately a 24-hour span of time. I say within approximately because we don't measure time in days and hours and weeks. We measure time in blocks. So the actual number of blocks is somewhere north of 17,000, but it's about one block every 5 seconds. So you can do the math on that. But so the most important thing is those two conditions. One, rebases occur when a transaction goal is met. And two, you cannot have two rebases within that span of 17,000 or so blocks. All right, with that out of the way, let's talk about how this is structured. Well, I'll draw your attention to the top left here where it says phase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could easily have put that as year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but it's not going to be by year because we don't know if we will actually meet the transaction thresholds daily or so, like every 17,000 blocks or so. It depends on performance. So if our performance is great, yes, it'll happen approximately every 17,000 or so blocks. But if it's not, then it won't. So it might stretch out. So I've kind of modeled this for approximately the equivalent of our human sort of 5 years, but you need to think of it as phases. You can see here that there's a column that says APR. Now, traditionally, if someone was committing to sort of a rebase blockchain with automated rebasing, you would have the concept of an APR because it would be annual, right? So we don't have that, but we can use that same principle for the purpose of calculating how the rebase increase goes. Now, keep in mind, rebase is just another term for saying compound interest, all right? That's an important thing to understand. So when you hear the term APR, you're probably more familiar with it when you see your credit card statement or something like that. And that's exactly how this applies here. So we are compounding a base balance, the balance in your account, by a period over time. So you can see here that the compounding decreases over time. So it starts off pretty high, but then it goes lower and lower and lower. And the reason for that is because what we want is a model in which rebasing rewards the earliest participants, which is you. So what we want is the rebasing to get harder and harder as time goes by, which means the blockchain has to perform better and better. We need to have more value created through the blockchain over time, in which case the rebasing will occur. But initially, we want it to be a little easier, and we want the rebase, the compound interest, to be higher. And that's what this is. So that APR value is sort of, use that only directionally as an APR because there is no annual concept. There is, however, a period of 365 epochs. Now, if you're wondering, what's an epoch? Well, an epoch is the time it takes for us to get our transaction milestone achieved. So this will become a little clearer as I go through the worksheet. All right, so over here, I have 5.625 million. So that's the incentive coins that are there and available for you. Now, the important part to understand is that the incentive coins are not immediately available to everybody. What happens is every time there's a rebase, there is essentially a reward to the community in that a percentage of those incentive coins move from the sort of vault in which they are into a pool in which they're available. Now, the vesting period for this is 24 months. So if you divide this number by 24, you get 7,812. And so that's how many coins move from the vault into the incentive pool and become available to everybody every time there's a rebase. So think about it this way. Rebase occurs, you get two bonuses, right? You get, first of all, the compound interest, which increases your holdings. And two, you get incentive coins available to you. So that happens over a 24-month period. All right, moving over to your right in this worksheet. This is just a way for us to simulate, based upon your coin holdings, what would be the incentive coins you are eligible for from this pool. And that's it. So I'm going to put in our initial supply, which is 50 million. Is that 50 million? 1, 2, 3. I think that's about right. So now let me just scroll down to the very bottom of this worksheet. And this particular column here is the rebase coins. That's column D. All right. So let's keep our eyes on that. I'm going to scroll way down to the bottom. And our max supply is supposed to be 250 million. So look at that value right here. It's just shy of 250 million. So that tells you that the worksheet is sort of programmed that way. And it is designed to hit that cap of 250 million based upon that progressive APR and based upon the progressive number of transactions required to achieve it. You can also see this column. I can freeze the header, but I know from the top of my head that this one here is a transactions column. And what this is saying is that by the time we get to our max supply, we should be averaging around 500,000 transactions in approximately what would be considered a day, 17,200 or so blocks. Now, if you're wondering like, wow, that's a huge number or whatever, go take a look at other chains. Ethereum does 1 million per day. Avalanche does approximately 500,000 per day. So this is not some odd number. It's a fairly aligned number with other protocols. And I think we should be able to easily get there or exceed it. All right, let's head back to the top now and work our way through here. Now, I want to address specifically a few questions that come to mind that were sent to me as I was preparing for this. So one of the question was, what happens to 15-minute epochs? That is deprecated. That is history. There is no more fixed time epochs anymore. The epoch is going to, the time for an epoch is going to vary based upon the time it takes to achieve the transaction goal. So before it was the epoch drove the rebase, and now it's the transaction volume drives the epoch and the rebase. All right, so that's new model. All right, let's work our way through here. And I'm going to highlight this column here. Let me also zoom in a bit, making it easier to see on the video there. Let's go a little bit less. Let's do 140. Okay, that's great. You can see both columns here. I mean, all columns here. Okay, so we start when the blockchain goes alive. That's called Genesis. All right, we have a value here of 100 million. So this is just 1.00000008 decimal places expressed as an integer. Why is it expressed as an integer? Because on the blockchain, we don't actually work with any kind of decimal numbers. We call them floating point numbers for precision purposes. We only work with integers. So any number that is a decimal is expressed as an integer. And to display it, you can always divide it by whatever 10 raised to whatever number you have. In this case, 10 raised to 8 to have it show up as an integer. So that's what this is. It's really 1.00, and then the next one is 1.00110, and so on and so forth. So it's divide by 10 raised to 8 for that. Okay, so the transaction goal here is 100,000. The rebase coins, we start off at 50 million. That's going to be what the cap table total is. How many incentive coins will be vested? Well, we'll start it off at 0, and it's essentially divide that by the period we have. So, okay, let's see here. Okay, the new incentive coins. So what we want to do is basically say that based upon the value here, 50 million, what are the new incentive coins? You know what? I should go back and change this to 1,000 so it's more realistic for everybody, because that's for the entire blockchain. I was wondering why those numbers are so large, and I just realized I didn't change it back. All right, this is probably better. So if you have 1,000 coins, what are you going to see? Well, so you're going to see that your share of these incentive coins is your coins, that's 1,000, divided by 15 million, because that's the overall OG pool who was eligible for the incentive coins, multiplied by the actual total of the pools. And so you have 0.5 of those coins. On this last one, what it does is it gives you a total of how many Rebase coins you got in that epoch, plus how many incentive coins you would have earned in that epoch. So that's basically how this spreadsheet reads. We go on to the next one here, and you'll see the number is slightly higher. Why? Because the Rebase value has been impacted by the APR. So it's been, this number is what got multiplied. And you can see that number, it's 1.0011011644. And that's actually the exact number you're seeing here. So based upon that, we have a larger transaction goal. So every epoch, our transaction goal grows just slightly, keeping in line with the rebase. So it's not every epoch you have a fixed number of transaction. Every epoch, the goal that has to be achieved by the blockchain grows. Now, I got a question about, well, does that mean that you, in the epoch 2, you need only 110? No, because then that would mean that the performance would have to be trivial, and it would defeat the purpose of having a model like this. So yeah, every epoch, you need the full number of transactions. So in epoch 0, you need 100,000 transactions in order to move the needle to epoch 1. In epoch 1, you need 100,110 transactions to move the needle to epoch 2, and so on and so forth. And so each of those, so basically, as you can see, the idea is to have Rebase be driven by blockchain performance. You got to think back to why this is important. If you think about this in isolation, like there's nothing going on, this blockchain just rebases, etc. It's nice to think about it, but it's a fantasy from a market perspective, right? If everyone in the market knows that the coin supply is inflationary, constantly inflationary, what's that going to do to the price? Well, no sane investor is going to pay that same price, knowing that in a short time, that the value of their investment is immediately going to drop. That is just unheard of or unthinkable of, unless you're, you have investors who just don't care about it. But the market has investors who do care about their money. And so if you have an inflationary coin supply, the price is going to drop. So we need to hedge against that, right? We need to prevent that from happening. And the basic model here is, look, yes, the supply is going up, but the performance, the value delivered by the blockchain is also going up. So have confidence in that price and either maintain or grow that price, hopefully grow that price, because we are elevating the value of the blockchain. So that's basically the model of this, is to make it possible for investors to see that this blockchain is delivering value, and it's not just inflating supply for the sake of inflating supply. There is no scenario in which a rational investor looks at an inflationary supply of coins and says, cool, I'll put my money into this because, 15 minutes later, that value is going to drop. It doesn't make any sense. So this is why this model is here. It's essentially a dynamic transaction-based system, and that those transactions act as a dampener. A dampener means something that slows things down. It's a term that's used in aviation and in automotive, but it essentially acts as a brake to ensure that it's not runaway. It just doesn't take off at a random rate. It's there to slow things down so that the reward, the inflation that occurs of the coins and the additional coins that people get are a reward for something, which presents a very fair picture, and it actually incentivizes investors because they know that the next rebase is coming is based upon better performance. And so if you get in now, you get a better investment. So those are the main reasons that this structure is created. Now, going back to the spreadsheet, I color coded it this morning to kind of show you where the periods are. I highlighted green and white, but you will see that approximately, see that here, 365. So that approximately corresponds to 1 year. I don't want people to think in terms of years and hours and days because it's more dynamic, right? So, but this is modeled. So approximately every year, the APR changes. If we meet our performance goals, that's exactly what it will be. It cannot be any less than that. Why not? Well, because you can only have one rebase approximately every 24 hours, every 17,000 blocks. So it can't be less than this, but it could be more than this if our performance is not good. But ideally, our performance is right on the money, and so we will see rebases occurring there. So here, this one here basically uses C4, which is the APR that is lower, and then it changes to C5. So you can see the transition occur here. So what's happened here is that it's switched to essentially the lower APR number. And if you go through the spreadsheet, you'll see that occurring at approximately every 365 there. So yeah, that's basically how it's modeled out. Now, also along the way here, you'll see that somewhere this column here stops producing incentives, and that's because we've run out of incentive coins. The incentive coins are a pool, and they are there over a period of time. So this is right here, and this number here is 24 months, which is 720 approximate days. It's a little bit more than that, 730 actually, but I just wanted to make it accelerate a little bit more. So that's basically what we have here. So if in the future the DAO decides to add more incentive coins, then that would increase. But that is not something that's planned in this worksheet today. But it is a DAO, and someone can submit a proposal to add more incentive coins. And if that happens and we all vote on it and the vote passes, then more coins would be also available there. So that in a nutshell is how this spreadsheet works. I'm happy to continue to be on this here and take questions from the audience and clarify any aspect that isn't crystal clear to anybody. I'm here to do that. So Chris, Ori, please come back and we can continue this conversation.